Welcome to my two talks for the night. So maybe I should start presenting myself. So my name is Nestenius. I'm from Sweden. I live in Helsingborg, so it's nice to come here to Copenhagen from time to time and join your tech community here. And also, as we said before, I run .NET Skåne. That's a local meetup for .NET developers in the south of Sweden area. So that is what I do. So what I do for my day job, I'm a freelance teacher, coach, consultant. I do a lot of teaching and training around .NET. It's about security, it's about OpenID-Connect, it's about Azure Cloud and architecture. That's my kind of areas. I also try to help others on Stack Overflow. How many here also helps out on Stack Overflow, not just copy-paste? There's a few. You know, it's a challenge. I mean, it's nice to see the numbers going up. You know, it's a gamification. I really like that, aspect of the thing. So do try to do that. And yes, unfortunately, Stack Overflow is going down traffic-wise, so I don't see that much questions being made today compared to before. But still, it's a nice way to kind of share your knowledge. I also do a blogging. So on my blog at nestenius.se. I do blog about .NET, about authentication, security, OpenID-Connect. So I've been focusing around the kind of the scary parts, meaning authentication, tokens, OpenID-Connect, and a little bit about Azure and a few other topics. So that's a go-to blog if you like that kind of things. In the past, I've been around for quite a few years now. So I started on the Atari ST computers and Commodore 64 doing games on the demo scene on the Atari ST in a demo group called Sync. I also do some hardware development projects. I reversed engineer the Sega Mega Drive to develop my own hardware developer kit when I was like 20, 21 or 22. And I also published with a friend a soundtrack for Atari called Audio Sculpture in 1991, in the Stone Age, written in 100% assembly language, that's the cool kids, what they do, assembly language, 100%, no BASIC, no C#, no Java, pure assembly. That was good times. But anyways, and I also do a lot about training. So I do training about architecture, as I said, the cloud is OpenID-Connect, and a lot about .NET, both from fundamental things up to kind of deep async awaited task, in that kind of area, and also a lot about security. So, and also throughout my talks, it's good if you want to, interrupt me with questions, just shout out, let me know if you have questions. It's always nice with discussions. So, let's talk about code coverage first. And yes, it might sound dull. Oh, hey, we have done that for many, many years. That's boring. But I do have a twist at the end, so bear with me. So code coverage, if you don't know what that means, is all about trying to measure how much of my code is actually executed by test. Okay, we have been seeing that for many, many years. There's nothing a bit really new. So that's, and I think that's a good way to measure, to get some indication of, how much of my code is actually covered by tests. And, should we add more tests or do we have too many tests? It's a good kind of hint about, what the state of your test coverage is. And how do you calculate it? Well, you have your test, you have your application, and then you run some tool to help you calculate that code coverage. And then you get some report based off that tool, and then you might get a number like 70% coverage or whatever. So it's pretty straightforward. And this coverage can be presented in many, many different ways. It can be either be like inline in your editor, so you can actually see which line is covered by test and which one do have test coverage. So that's pretty nice. We can also, some other tools generate some report that I can go back to and explore the values and all the details and breakdowns and analysis. For some cases, that it's a good kind of approach. And For the .NET side, there's plenty of tools available. There's tools in Visual Studio. There's a lot of third-party, open source, free and also commercial tools. So there's plenty of tools to choose from when you want to calculate code coverage. One tool is called Coverlet. How many have used Coverlet? Have you heard of it? Yeah, some have heard of it. But the fun thing is that if you, just in .NET, you can actually create a test project. So if you add a new project, and you can search for XUnit, for example, and you can search for, I can take this one here, XUnit test project. So we have one project type called XUnit test project. I can create one. I call it Copenhagen test, just to show. And I create this test project. It's more or less like a normal class project, this one here. But the difference is that when you look at the project file, you actually see that you get Coverlet installed by default. So this is an open source kind of code coverage tool that is part of all the test projects from in Visual Studio. So it's good to know it's always there. But it's like, a bit ugly because, it's not Microsoft, Who is it? But it's an open source code coverage tool that is part of all the test projects nowadays in .NET Core. So that's fine. So it's kind of, a NuGet package like most things today. And, it's in part of the test project as I just demonstrated. So that's nothing new. So how do you use it? Well, it's very simple. You just run it using the .NET test tool over the .NET command from the command line. You choose the, what do you want to collect and use the XPlat code coverage. And this XPlat means kind of cross-platform code coverage tool. So in my case, I can go back to my I have a test project here with my kind of a few unit tests. And I can actually show you the code first. So this is just a plain, very simple calculator. Very plain add, subtract, and similar. And I also do have some unit test to test it, like, can I add two numbers, very, very simple. So I can actually take this tool and I can actually run it from a command line like this. So in my test project, I run this .NET test command. If I run the test, calculate the kind of test coverage. Okay, that's awesome. But the question is, what's the output of the Coverlet tool? Well, it's a file called coverage.cobertura.xml. So it will create a test folder for me. And in that one, there will be one folder per test run as a random grid. And then you get a coverage cobertura.xml file. And then you might wonder, what is cobertura for a weird thing? So it's actually some Java kind of, okay, you could call it like an industry standard for code coverage coming from the Java side, some Java tool called cobertura, but then that file format became pretty kind of standardized. So if I go back to my application, I can go to this kind of folder and I can see that I do have this coverage cobertura file, and I can actually open it so we can see what's inside. Test results, like that. And it's basically an XML file showing me, which method and what line was hit and similar things. So, of course, this kind of file is not fun to read, so we need a tooling to generate some reports. So how do we do that? Well, we can run and install an open source separate tool called Report Generator. And if you do that, you can run that command in the same folder as your XML file, and then you will get a nice report. So we can let's do that. And very quickly, it writes a report for me in a folder called coverage report.index. So let's open it and see what it does say. So this is just a plain kind of static report that you can inspect, and you can drill down into the different files and look at the kind of, at different levels, and you can explore things and filter out things. So you can actually see about, how much coverage do we have per file. So this is totally fine and doable, of course, but how can we improve this even further? So let's talk about nCrunch. Anyone used nCrunch? It's a few here, so that's good. So nCrunch, for you who doesn't know about it, let's kind of show you a link to that. So nCrunch is a commercial extension to Visual Studio. It's a live testing tool. So what does it do? Well, I have some old example code here. And I mean, I could, run my test in my test explorer and, explore the kind of result. And after a while, you get the test report. And in my case, it should say that, all is green, everybody's happy. But at the same time, going to the test explorer each time to look at the, results is pretty boring. And then looking at, which test failed this time and going back and forth. It works, but it's not so fun. So what I can do with nCrunch is the following. So instead, I can do it like this. Let's find some fun files to look at. This is some really old code for me. So what we do get instead is this kind of green markers in my editor. So this means that if I were to make a change, let's make a bug here, like is equal false, for example. I just type false here. I do nothing else. I don't build it. I don't run anything. And eventually, it should turn red here, like that. I get, real-time test feedback while I'm coding. It will run the test while I'm coding, so I can actually see in real time, as I develop, do I have some test breakage or not? And I think this is actually what makes TDD fun. And I can also always undo, Control Z. I don't do anything else. I just, it becomes green again. So this is really nice. And if you don't want to do the nCrunch tool, it's also built into Visual Studio, and it's called live unit testing. And if you use that one, there is as an example of what it looks like. Instead you will get some check marks like this. So let me zoom in here. You get the kind of check marks and cross instead. But they do the same thing. The only drawback is that this tool is only for Visual Studio Enterprise Edition. So if you don't want to buy that one or don't have it, then you're out of luck. You have to use nCrunch instead. Question? No, it's commercial, but the license is not expensive. It's like 1,500 kronor or 1,000 kronor-ish, or around that 1,000 to 2,000 kronor. So it's not that expensive compared to Enterprise Edition. Yes, it's a good question. And what you can do in that case is to configure nCrunch, and you can control the priority and how often and how aggressive it should run in the background. So yes, it does take some CPU to do it, but it does it in a smart way by analyzing just running those steps that is affected by a change. So do some mapping in the back end, so you can control that to find a good balance. But it makes TDD fun to get that real-time feedback. Yes?
What about the feedback on very large solutions or projects?
I mean, of course, if you have 10,000 tests, it might, you have to kind of, adjust how aggressive it should be. But still, I like the real-time feedback aspects, because all about DevOps and continuous integration and everything is all about getting feedback. Build server maybe takes a half an hour to build, that's long cycles, and going to the test explorer here to the left, that maybe takes a half a minute, but here you can actually get the real-time-ish feedback. I think that's the extremest form of feedback that you can get, I think. Question? Okay. So there's a trade-offs. Yeah. But you can also enable it for... Sure. But you can also enable it just for those projects that you're working in. I mean, you don't need to do everything, So that is a balance, of course. So that's nice. Do have a second example here too, but so I'll come back to that. So nCrunch, I think, is pretty nice. But if we come to summarize, so code coverage means that we do a bunch of tests, and each one will contribute to the total code coverage, right? Like that. And then you get the total number, okay, 70% is code coverage. That's the common approach of code coverage. That's how we do it, right? We all agree on that. There's no kind of objections. But one day I had this kind of shower thought, you're starting the shower, have a big idea. And my idea was, what happens if we only have one single test and do code coverage? Kind of, what? That was the stupidest thing you ever heard. But, bear with me, let's explore what this would mean. So that would mean that with only one test, you would actually get a path, a trace through the entire code base for one specific operation. It's like when you fire with a gun, you see that, the war movies, you have a kind of trace of bullets. You see this white kind of bullets flying. You can actually see where you're going. So you get like a path through your application, right? But of course, the question is, how can we make use of this? That's the question. How can we use that kind of idea and in a good way? I mean, in a more practical way. So I do have some sample example here. I will enable nCrunch and just wait for nCrunch to kick in here. And I do have one single test. And in my application, I do have some API. I will actually, this kind of code, I will kind of I make an API call. So in my test here, I call this kind of get and process customer. I have some simple API call, get string async. I do JSON serialization. I do some if customer, blah, blah, blah. I can also have some delay here just to simulate some work. So out of box here, I use nCrunch. So we see that some of those kind of circles here have different colors. So this one here means that I can actually see that this is a slow step. I can actually see while I'm coding, I can see where's the bottlenecks. So I can actually pinpoint on per line where is the kind of performance penalties in this code base. So that's one line. And I can go up to the API call. So that one takes a bit time as well to kind of operate. So that's good. I see I do have some code coverage, but the important here, we only have one test. That's my only test I do have. So I see that I do get a trace through my application. I don't run this part, for example. And then I do have some customer class here, some kind of data objects like that. But then, of course, you wonder, what's the point? Just one single test. But then nCrunch has another hidden feature, and that is that it can enable something called OpenID overlay. So I can do that, and boom, I get some more visualization about the execution flow for this single test. Okay, but important, this is code is not in a debug mode. this code is while I'm editing, right? Okay, so we see this kind of small pointers here. What's that? Well, I can actually look at the data that is returned back by doing that API call. So I'm actually running code in my editor, and I can actually inspect the variables while I'm actually editing my code. I can view this, so some flow charts here. And of course, this customer object here is pretty boring. I can even do this. I can actually drag it out like that. That's pretty nice. But of course, customer is pretty kind of useless. And that's because nCrunch do a toString on that type. So I could actually uncomment this kind of toString here to just get back the first name and last name. So I can do that. And I do it like that. Just, go back up here, and I go back here, and now customer is actually John Doe. I'm not in the debug mode. I'm actually just typing in my editor, executing code, and calling a random API. And this API is, called by kind of a get toString here. And I can also go navigate into the methods, and I can actually go down to the actually kind of jump down here and also do the same thing down here to see just within that method what's the values. Just by doing one test, calling an API, I can actually see the execution flow throughout my application. And I can also navigate back one step up, through the call chain. And I think that is a pretty neat idea of using code coverage in a way you haven't seen before. Nice? Questions? Was it just magic? So I think this is pretty nice, a nice kind of approach of, thinking outside the box. How can we use something for other purposes? And hopefully, the tooling around this kind of idea can grow so we can actually get some more feedback while we're coding in my editor.
So the test you have shown as an example is like main test one, so it doesn't really bring a like business value or
No,
anything,
but
this is more like looking for how it goes through.
yes. So I think the point is not to make a business case test. It's more that I'm exploring as you're a consultant, you come to a new unfamiliar code base, you want to explore it, so why not make a create customer test, follow it through the chain of execution. And by using nCrunch and this approach, you can get a feel for and explore an unknown code base using code coverage as a way to do it.
Will it work with, now you use the template for the XUnit template?
Yes. So nCrunch works with both NUnit and the testing frameworks. So both XUnit and MS Test, I think, and NUnit. So it's nothing. You can do this also in .NET Framework because my old example. This is like 12 years old code, and this is actually if you look at the framework, it's actually I think it should be like 4.8. So this is not .NET Core-ish either. It's even .NET Framework in this case. So nCrunch been around for 10 years or more. 15, a long time, and it's awesome. But I really think this is a nice approach of how to think about code coverage, just having one test and see the kind of path through the application. And I hope the nCrunch guys, I've talked to him, but if they can do more of this kind of visualization in the editor.
What happens if you combine that approach with, let's say you have a series of unit tests that are sort of data-driven. You send different data in, and they potentially would look up on the API different versions.
Yeah, of course.
Different ones. What would happen to this exploring test?
I don't exactly remember exactly what, so let's look at the API call. In this case, I'm just getting one kind of customer in a fast way. I could, change that URL to a different one, and I will see different values in the customer object that I show down here. And so if I, just one more thing I want to show you. So if I enable this one, the overlay in here, we see the customer, and that is because I'm calling the toString of this customer object here. But I could also get rid of this one and make this one into a record instead. That will make the output a bit different, and we will see that here that you will get that kind of JSON-ish output instead. I think it maybe takes some time before it kicks in, but customer here. No, I did customer record, and I should get rid of that one. I don't know why it's never. So if I go up here, that one will actually.
Need to comment in the get full name. A little bit up.
Okay. Oh, I did the wrong one. Okay, sorry. A bit, So now, we will see that the customer becomes the toString on the record instead, because that makes a long string. So yes, it would be nice that, if you could, tweak how ncrunch displays this thing. We just make a one big toString. So that's why I did my own toString version on here to just kind of show the most important things. But I think it's a nice way to debug things without actually debugging it. Make sense? Any questions on that part? So let's jump to the second talk. And if you have any questions, or you want to have my slides, or the links, feel free to email me afterwards, or connect on LinkedIn or something, And I will also try to share the slides with Henrik afterwards, so you will get those things as well. So let's move to the second topic. Okay, so let's do the second talk.